May I come in, sir?
Come in.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Have your
sirs.
seat,
Good morning,
Karthik.
ma'ams.
Comfortable?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully you have taken your vaccines.
Yes, sir.
So remove your mask, please. Okay, introduce yourself.
So my name is Karthik Panigrahi. I am from Odisha. I have completed my 10th and 12th from Calcutta, KV number 1 Salt Lake. I have completed my undergraduation and post-graduation from Delhi University, undergraduation from Sri Venkateshwara College, and post-graduation from Hindu College.
Okay. So you are coming from Odisha and you are a student of history.
Yes, sir.
Have you read about Allahabad pillar inscription?
Yes, sir.
Which inscriptions are there?
So Allahabad pillar inscription has the schism edict, which which is about the wife of Ashoka and about the internal matters of the Mauryan Empire. Secondly, it also houses the Prayag Prashasti, which is about the achievements of Samudragupta, and they are composed by his court poet Harishen. And thirdly, it also houses a Persian inscription, which is about Jahangir and the genealogy of the Mughals.
That's correct. What was the nature of economic management of the Mauryans as reflected in the textbook of Vishnugupta Chanakya, that Arthashastra?
So the Arthashastra as a source is very limited in the sense that it's a prescriptive and a normative text. How far the realities of the Mauryan economy are reflected there isn't really clear. But according to Chanakya, the Mauryan economy was very centralized. There were adhyakshas appointed for each and every domain of the economy. There was the Sita Adhyaksha, who was in charge of the agriculture, the Panya Adhyaksha, the Pautav Adhyaksha. And
so can we say that there was some kind of public sector undertaking was functional those times? Without,
really,
of course, carrying this kind of nomenclature?
Not really, sir, because the public sector undertaking is completely different, because it remains accountable to the people in a democracy. But in a monarchy, talking about a public sector undertaking would be difficult, because there is no real accountability. But in a centralized empire, it would have necessarily worked under the controls of a king who was also prescribed to be all powerful and all sovereign in Chanakya's text as well.
So do you support public sector undertakings in the present context? Should the government own commercial enterprises and engage in production of different kinds of goods and services?
Sir, I support public sector undertakings, but only in a limited scale. There are some sectors, for example airlines, where the government really should not interfere and should let the market forces work. But others, for example atomic energy or defense, where national security, sovereignty and territory and integrity of India are concerned, there the government should remain.
What about ores?
Sorry, sir?
What about ores found under the earth?
Ores, sir, ores should be allowed, should be under the control of the government, but the private participation should also be there. In the recent amendment to the Mines and Minerals Act, captive mining was abolished, and this allowed for an opening of the coal market in which mining of coal was allowed, and commercial sale was also allowed.
And how to reconcile the conflicts of interest between the community which is residing there on the surface of earth where ore is found and the commercial interest of the company which has been given the right to extract the ores?
So this situation is very similar to what happened in Odisha. So there obviously the agitation was there because the locals have religious as well as sacred beliefs, but also because of the economic hardships, because driving them out without really giving them a solution or rehabilitation would not really be justiciable to them. So I think the commercial enterprises should work more trying to reach out to the people, and proper environmental assessment of each.
So do you think the parliament should have provided for a prior condition of rehabilitation, resettlement of the people who are displaced?
Yes, sir. The parliament being accountable to the people.
And do you think this is a parliamentary omission not to provide for this kind of?
So I think it does provide through the Environment Protection Act, where the environmental impact assessment is allowed, and there the public hearing stage is also there, where
But environmental protection provision is there, community protection provision should be there, no?
Yes, sir. There are also other initiatives like joint forest management, community management, where the communities are also involved in.
So do you compare? That means the protest from the people of Odisha in Ashoka times and protest by the people of Odisha nowadays are having similar root causes?
Not really, sir, because there it was about political domination and retaining political sovereignty. But here it is about the economy. They do not really object to the economic advancement, but it is about blind development without really caring about the environment or about rehabilitation of the people.
Okay, nice talking to you, Karthik. Thank you, ma'am.
Karthik.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have written that you read non-fiction books.
Yes, ma'am.
Which all books have you read till now?
Ma'am, I usually read books on history and on international affairs. Recently, I read the book by Honorable Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, The India Way, which charts the foreign policy strategy of India in a changing world, not only for the new decade, but also in a time after the pandemic.
So name 5 books, non-fiction books that you have read.
Ma'am, The Anarchy by William Dalrymple, then The Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall, then Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell, and then The Last Mughal, also by William Dalrymple. And finally, I have read this book, The India Way by S. Jaishankar.
What is the unique writing style of William Dalrymple?
The unique writing style is that he combines different sources which are not used or sparingly used by historians. For example, in The Last Mughal, he referred to the Persian newspapers, the Urdu and Arabic newspapers, which were very prevalent during that time. They tried to foster a sense of community engagement, tried to wish away the communal differences, and a Hindu-Muslim solidarity was created in Delhi when the rebels briefly captured power, so that the rebel unity is not dismantled, and when the British forces, which during September 1857 were present at the gates of Delhi, at Kashmiri Gate, the newspapers tried to empower the rebels, trying to inspire them to not lose heart and to fight against the Christian menace. The myth they perpetuated was that the British actually represented Christianity and they wanted to abolish their religion, and this was a ploy which they used to try to foster Hindu-Muslim solidarity.
Okay. You also watch movies and web series?
Yes, ma'am.
So suggest 2 movies and 2 web series to me.
Ma'am, I would say as for movies, you should really watch The Kashmir Files, which is recently released.
Okay.
And another is The Batman, which actually released, which was also very good. It talked about the mental struggles of a superhero, about his sense of identity and his sense of justice as a vigilante, where he tries to reconcile between working outside of the law.
And 2 web series?
And 2 web series, I would say you should really watch the documentary series, Drive to Survive, about the Formula 1 season. And second is, you should really watch Rocket Boys, which is on Sony Live, about the trials and tribulations of Homi Bhabha and Vikram Sarabhai in pre-independent and independent India. They were the web series actually talks about how they were also equally contributing to the story of Indian growth in the early 50s.
Give me 3 observations regarding web series which are made on Indian society nowadays.
Web series in Indian society today take more risks, in the sense that they talk about issues which might not be covered in the mainstream media. For example, they talk about LGBTQ community issues. They talk. There are also others which talk about female issues. For example, there was a web series called Laila, which actually was about a woman who was in a dystopian society, who was trying to find her daughter and her husband.
And third observation?
And third observation is that because of the longer format, it actually gives more chance to flesh out the story and the characters, which a limited time frame in a movie might not permit.
Okay, thank you.
Karthik.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. So you belong to a history background, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard about a name called Selig Harrison?
Yes, sir.
Who was he?
He was a social scientist, and he was from the Nordic countries. I think, sir, that
He was an American journalist, and he made a very unpopular statement about India. That is what he said. In fact, I am quoting him. He said that Indian democracy is going to be unsustainable and going to decline very soon. Can you explain this statement? Why did he make such kind of statement?
Sir, I think he made this statement because of the diversity within India, about cultures, about languages, about the religions which were present, and I think he thought that we, being a new country, wouldn't be able to reconcile with these differences, and eventually there will be differences within, and these differences would lead to separatist movements. And ultimately, the Indian democracy and the edifice which sustains it, that is the constitution, they would not be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's where it lies. My last question to you is this: why is it so that when we say ancient time, the Harappan civilization, it actually continued with some changes up to recent time, in fact, in India. On the contrary, the other contemporary civilizations, they actually declined, they got almost extinct in the past. Like Mesopotamia, must be knowing about Mesopotamian
Yes, sir.
civilization.
Yes, sir.
Why was it so?
So I think we find traces of the Harappan civilization also in the Vedic period. There is the cemetery edge culture, which is found in near the Punjab area, and that I think is analogous to the Vedic period. Another is that the level of urbanization, the town planning, and the other tenets which are associated with the Harappan civilization, they inspired the second urbanization in the later Vedic period.
Say, just now you've stated a very nice statement that India has been, a country of cultural diversity.
Yes, sir.
So that exactly was the factor, right from the time of the Harappan civilization, in fact.
Yes, sir.
So that should have been the crux of your answer. Fine, it's all right. Thank you.
Karthik,
Yes,
how
sir.
are you feeling?
Fine, sir.
You're healthy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just was looking at your DAF. You have done your schooling from West Bengal, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bengal has been in news for a variety of reasons.
Yes, sir.
Also post-poll violence
Yes,
or
sir.
victimization of the electorate. Also some of the candidates by and large.
Yes, sir.
Also there have been recent cases of violence in the Bengal. What is wrong with the Bengal administration? Why things are coming actually in news these days?
So I think it is because of the politically charged atmosphere. Two parties have been in close contestation during the polls, and that is why there has been
That means
violence.
you can entirely shift the blame to a political party?
No,
Is
sir.
this the only reason?
There is also economic hardships, lack of economic opportunities, and other and corruption at the ground level, sir. I mean, there was this theory which was in the newspaper about cut money being demanded by some of the functionaries at the lower levels, and I think that also is a factor behind the political violence.
See, the cooperative federalism, the very word is actually these days sounding like it is a misnomer. Why there has been a trust deficit between the central government and the state government? What is the reason you find?
So the trust deficit is largely because of the issues during the pandemic, as well as during the allocation of funds, and during the GST, as the states haven't been able to recover their dues after the GST. The compensation was also not being given, and that also contributed to the trust deficit. Lack of coordination during the pandemic also led to loss of life.
What is the role of a bureaucrat to bridge that particular trust deficit that is prevailing? How will you do that if you would be posted in West Bengal?
So I will try to talk to the community leaders, try to explain to them about the basic tenets of which our governance is based, try to understand the differences between them, and make them understand the values which empower our constitution, which empower our
You've seen
polity.
Kashmir files, you were talking about Kashmir files. Have you seen that?
Yes, sir.
What was the story of the Kashmir files?
Sir, the Kashmir files talked about the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits who lived in the valley, and after the communally charged atmosphere in the late 80s, and in 1990 they were driven away from their houses. There were also mass killings, and violence against women and children as well. And it is about their struggle to reclaim their identity, to reclaim their homeland. It talks about.
Do you think minorities needs to be classified as it is in a very different format? State-wise minority classification shall be there. Now, please tell me, what is the constitutional position of the minorities in India?
Sir, minority as a term isn't defined in the constitution, but they are protected. They have cultural and educational rights. Their unique culture, language, and their traditions will be protected under Article 29 and 29, and under Article 30 they have the right to run their educational institutions and disseminate the knowledge which is held across generations.
One question that I would like to tell you, I would like to ask you, that have you heard of the that was actually mentioned in today's newspaper also? Have you read that today's newspaper?
Yes, I was going through right now.
Kanyashi Prakalp Yojana of West Bengal. What is that?
Sir, I don't have a very specific idea, but it is about the benefits being given to women, empowerment of, it talks about empowerment of women at the grassroots level. I am sorry, sir, I don't know the specifics of the scheme.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Karthik,
Yes, ma'am.
have you heard about green GDP?
Yes, ma'am, I have heard, but I don't have exact recollection of it. But if I may be allowed to elaborate, I think it is about the impact of the environment on the GDP, taking into account the impact of the industries and other developmental aspects on the environment, and trying to bring about a much more climate sensitive economy.
Is it taking into account the impact on environment, or accounting for the services given to us by environment?
I'm sorry, sorry ma'am, I don't know that.
Okay, no issue. Have you heard about the new Quad grouping?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell me?
Ma'am, Quad as a concept emerged in the early 2000s, but it really didn't blossom until 2017, when it is a grouping of 4 countries: Japan, India.
I'm talking about new Quad.
Okay.
The new Quad grouping.
New Quad is something which developed in the Middle East. It comprises of Israel, UAE, India, and USA. This is a new development after the Abraham Accords, in which there was a rapprochement between UAE and Israel and other Arab countries as well. This is about bringing in new cooperation in defense, in security, and in trade ties. India, as a country which tries to engage with different countries in an increasingly multipolar world in an issue-based manner, is also an important stakeholder in the governance of the Middle East. While obviously the ostensible opposition is towards Iran, but India actually would engage more with the other countries in terms of petroleum, in terms of trade, in terms of people-to-people contacts.
Do you think this new Quad is actually pivoted around the role of Turkey?
Yes, ma'am. There was some talk about Turkey as well, because of the growing differences between Turkey and USA within the NATO, and also because of differences with the other Middle East countries. But I would still think that the opposition is towards Iran, because all countries here,
All countries?
except for India.
US?
The US also.
There have been semblance of some agreement.
Yes, ma'am, they have been trying to do so, but I think because of the emerging situation in Ukraine, there might be a difficulty in reaching a consensus, especially because there has been a linkage between Ukraine's giving up of nuclear weapons and about the aggression of Russia.
JCPOA.
So Iran might be unwilling now to completely let go of its nuclear option.
Okay, in that scenario, if it develops the way you are speaking, how do you think this Quad would stabilize itself? If where would India stand itself?
Ma'am, India has always been about diplomatic answers to all kinds of conflict. Even in Ukraine, we're trying to reach towards diplomatic and dialogue-based solution. So I think even if there might be increasing differences, India will move towards a much more diplomatic and dialogue-based solution there also.
India hasn't been very successful diplomatically when it comes to Iran vis-a-vis US. US vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine is understandable, but it poses a problem when it comes to Iran for India to maintain its diplomacy.
Ma'am, I think we still have very close contacts with Iran, even if some differences are there.
We do have close contacts with Iran, but how do we manage US then?
Ma'am, I think US would also try to bring about a more dialogue-based solution because of its new mantra of America being back. It is trying to empower the mechanisms like the NATO, the Quad, which are based more on dialogues and cooperation between different countries. So I think it would also welcome a much more closer and cooperation based solution.
Okay, my last question to you. What is Havana syndrome?
Ma'am, Havana syndrome is basically when there is a mysterious illness of diplomats who travel from USA outside. During the Cold War, it emerged as something which afflicted all diplomats and US dignitaries who visited. Recently, Kamala Harris also was said to be afflicted with the Havana syndrome when she traveled to Southeast Asia.
Then why is it termed Havana?
Because Havana is because of the differences between US and Cuba, especially during the reign of Fidel Castro.
Is it only because of that it's termed as Havana?
And also because of the climate of Cuba being tropical, so there might be linkages there.
Okay, thank you, Karthik.
Karthik, we had commendable technological breakthroughs in ancient times and even in medieval times.
Yes, sir.
But similar breakthroughs are not visible in modern contemporary times in India. Why?
Sir, I think as the economic survey some years back flagged, the percentage of GDP which is allocated to research and development remains below 1%. And there also the burden is largely borne by the government. So I think the new research has to be welcomed in this regard. The NEP, which establishes the National Research Foundation as an independent body, would try to promote research because of its central tenets being about multidisciplinarity, about critical thinking. So I think we can see much more developments in the NEP era of education.
Do you think this mushrooming of coaching institution is also encouraging the culture of mugging, and that is a hindrance in fresh thinking among young persons?
Yes, I think so, because of the growing unemployment in India, where jobs are very scarce. So I think the candidates, rather than trying to learn something new, try to crack the exam in a way, cracking the formula and getting through. Also because of the education system itself, where marks-based assessment is preferred over multidisciplinary thinking, about critical thinking. That is why the NEP has also come up with the academic bank of credits, where people can actually opt for different courses from different colleges in order to boost their
Are we
knowledge.
generous enough to recognize the contributions of our scientists and to reward them with not only social status but also economic amount, that is economic rewards?
Yes, sir, I think so, because this would come only with wider acceptance of their ideas and greater risk taking, and only by that, when they become more popular and more sustainable, more acceptable in the wider society, then the economic status will also increase. They would be brought in for collaborations with different companies.
So which is the best prize given by the government of India to scientists?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know that.
Okay. The fact that we are generally not aware of the prizes meant for scientists suggests that we are not generous in rewarding their efforts.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if let's say you are made a Prime Minister of India for 3 years,
Yes, sir.
how you can bring about a paradigm shift in technological breakthroughs?
So I would very much go on the route which is prescribed in the NEP, which is about a refurbished education system, which promotes critical thinking, multidisciplinarity, and also tries to establish research institutions which specifically focus on research and intensive research. There I would also empower the different institutes of eminence the new program which the government has brought in by giving government colleges financial aid. 1,000 crore rupees is given, which will not only improve the infrastructure, but would also enable them to promote more scientists, promote more research, and this would in turn lead to more technological breakthroughs in India. And further, after that, I would also try to, as you suggested, make much more grants, more awards, so that they are recognized in the mainstream. The awards become much more popular.
What about the growing application of religious symbols and religious rituals in day-to-day life? How it affects the mindset of persons? Does it ensure or instigate them to become more scientific, or more ritualistic and less scientific?
Sir, I think ritual and science can coexist with each other, because this gives us a mental solace about us moving on the right path. Even in ISRO, we see the scientists being reverent towards gods. And I think religion is more on the mental peace aspect, and the science is more on the knowledge aspect. So I would say religion feeds the soul, while science feeds the mind.
Nice talking to you, Karthik. Your interview is over. You may go now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. May I come in, sir?
Come in. Have your seat, Karthik.
Thank you, sir.
So, how's your performance? How do you rate your performance?
So I would say that much more reading. We can never stop reading more.
Of course, that's part. What else?
And so I think also I need to work on my expressions a bit.
That's correct. If you smile a little bit more jovial, more livelihood,
Yes.
facial expression would help your communication.
Yes.
That's correct. You are a very strong candidate. Means your analysis is very strong. Your reception of a question, you understood generally the intent of the question quickly and responded also swiftly to that. Let's say a problem arose in front of you and quickly responded to that. That's how question answer can be viewed. So that's very good. That shows that you are having some administrative competence inbuilt in your personality. What is their guideline is that administrative suitability of the candidate.
Yes.
That we have discovered that you are having that one.
Thank you, sir.
Generally, other things are that your entry is good, you greeted the board well, your sitting posture is good.
Sir.
There was some problem in eye contact. That means what we prescribe is that you should keep your eye contact stable
Yes, sir.
with the person you are talking to.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was not there. It was a little bit disturbed sometimes. But on analytical front, we have discussed, and more than 2 members have suggested that your answers are longish, which is suitable for your answer writing in graduation courses in DU and post-graduation courses. But this is not a suitable mode for interview.
Okay, sir.
That should be crisp, to the point.
Yes, sir.
And it should be delivered until the member is having the curiosity to listen to you. So you have to be watchful as to how far the member is eagerly listening to me.
Yes.
And when he has started displaying some kind of disinterested look kind of.
Yes, sir.
So the moment you feel that, okay, now interest is reduced to almost zero.
I should stop there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you need to also show a little bit accommodativeness or flexibility in your attitude. See, firmness is very important in administrators.
Yes, sir.
Administrator must be firm. But at the same time, the administrator is a part of a steel frame
Yes, sir.
and not iron frame. So you have to be a little accommodative. That's it. But see, in history, you could have studied that sometimes in battles and wars,
It's better to retreat.
yeah.
Sun Tzu.
So that you are required to do. I think you have never said sorry in the whole discourse. You should try to say sorry more.
So I think I have when I
The
did not
nomenclature,
know the answer.
nomenclature of Havana syndrome was not known to you. You can simply say that okay, I understand what Havana syndrome is, But why it is called Havana, I don't know. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Because there are other reasons.
Okay, sir.
Strategic backstepping or withdrawal is very productive sometimes.
Okay, sir.
So that shows your humility. If you say sorry to senior bureaucrats, it shows that in the hierarchy,
Yes, sir.
you will be fitting. Otherwise, you will be creating some stress in the hierarchy if you are adamant and stubborn.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? So what you have to find occasion interview to display different attributes of your personality.
Yes, sir.
And humility, intellectual integrity is there,
Yes, sir.
but you have to display it more than once.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Rest of the things are very good. That means overall assessment is that you are one of the most competent students we have seen in recent time.
Thank you, sir.
Particularly your exposition was very good
Thank you, sir.
and analysis was very good.
Thank you, sir.
But we have developed some kind of expectation that you should clear this exam this time only with very good score in interview. So we were driven to suggest you that these are the 3-4 points where you should pay attention to. Watch your video carefully
Yes, sir.
and mend it.
Okay, sir.
It is nothing is time consuming process.
Yes, sir.
It's all internal things.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's it. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.